This is the point. The free market died in 2008. Get it? The free market died in 2008. After seeing that some massive hedge funds were seriously shorting GameStop, essentially betting on it to completely collapse and going to make a whole like billions of dollars off the collapse of a company, many people probably already know the stocks that the people on the forum were buying a lot of in order to counteract the shorting that the hedge fund had done. They boosted the price hugely on GameStop, and those people have lost billions of dollars. That hedge fund, and now their stock is extremely high. It won't always be forever, but this is a manipulation of. This is only a manipulation of the market in as much as it's something that literally every day people on Wall Street do. It's just that now they're going to be the ones, hypothetically, who are left holding the bag. When that much capital is put behind something just being destroyed, everybody pays attention. And those hedge funds, they know damn well that when they do something like that, that dramatically, they kind of make it happen. A bunch of other people are like, well, geez, if they're betting that much and they're going around being like, listen, I think GameStop is dead and stuff like that. Everybody, unless you're like a fool, really, unfortunately, is gonna pull all their stock out, and they kind of make it happen. They essentially play the market in that way. And this happens all the time. They have sycophants in the media. There are people on CNBC or in the Wall Street Journal or whatever it is, that they're all friends with these people in hedge funds and on Wall Street and whatnot, and word gets around. They've already gone out to the SEC, the regulatory commission that oversees Wall Street, and they've halted trading on those companies, and now they're looking into regulation, and they're having a tantrum about it. And what you'll say is like, oh, well, it's the free market. This is the point. The free market died in 2008. Get it? The free market died in 2008. What should have happened, had the Federal Reserve not pumped hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars and propped up all these institutions, in a free market, the entire system would have collapsed. All of these people with their terrible bets and everything that they did, all of their irresponsibility, they would have lost a whole bunch of money. And yes, the entire financial system, including, people who didn't have much, they would have suffered for it too. It would have been terrible for everybody. It would have been awful. But you know what? You know what that creates? When things that are irresponsible collapse and die, it like a forest burning down, it creates soil for new life to grow out of it. Companies or individuals, now there's all this space, there's all this opportunity where these massive institutions that were extremely irresponsible and selfish, used to be. There are all kinds of people that had a lot of enthusiasm and know-how, and were looking to the future, looking at new ways of doing things, that they could have come in and recreated everything, but made it better and made it more efficient and made it hypothetically less corrupt and less just predatory. or whatever it is. There was space for all sorts of new things to grow. And because those institutions wouldn't have been sort of grandfathered in simply by the amount of capital that they have, those systems, those entities that would have come up, new banks, new, investment firms, and so on, they would have had to have truly provided some value to all of us. They would have no longer having the opportunity to just sort of rest on the fact that they're so powerful that they can get away with doing all sorts of shady stuff and nobody cares. They would have actually had to have their company or their firm or their bank work in a way to where people wanted to invest in them. They wanted to do business with them. They would need to do that. They would need to be something that people trusted and relied upon in order for it to grow. So by now, had the free market have actually worked, while there would have been a whole lot of pain for a while there, at this particular moment in time, in all likelihood, things would have been rebuilt and they would be better than they are now. The companies that were irresponsible and shady would be gone. People who were screwed over by those companies would have made sure that there was some sort of justice there, frankly, because things were sort of cushioned, so a lot of people suffered, but not so much that they did anything about it. And, the market could have worked in exactly the way that free markets are supposed to. So here's the thing. Because the free market died in 2008, 2009, the rules are different. All these firms now know, which is further evidenced by the fact that the stock market reached all-time highs during a time where the economy was in shambles elsewhere and everybody was suffering. The reason it was able to still go up is because once again, once something terrible happened, the Federal Reserve pumped hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars into the system. And the interest on all that money that they're printing and giving to banks and whatnot, that's passed on to the rest of the big fish in the financial sector. And those banks make tons of interest. They make money off of that money. They don't just give it out. They make money off of it. The more money that the Fed prints and gives to them, they're making money off of it. It's not free. That is not the free market. It's not the free market. It is a kind of cronyistic, state-controlled capitalism that only benefits this select number of people. Because those things are propped up by the public, that creates incentives where other rules of the game need to change. Now, how does this relate to what just happened? What we're seeing now is how those same people who have been bailed out twice now, this just happened again in 2020, who have been bailed out twice now, are now saying the first time that we go and really have some serious regulations, where they're really pushing for real regulations for the logic of the free market to actually be put in check, to keep individuals on the internet, people who are not well connected, from doing things, essentially the exact same thing that people on Wall Street do all the time. They're just not doing it through traditional social and media channels. They're doing it from the grassroots level. The first time that we actually get regulators stepping in, and there being all this, stuff on CNBC and elsewhere, and everybody's so outraged, is when it happens with people who are just grassroots people trying to do something and being smart. And that is the future. There's no law that we're going to pass that's going to fix everything. This is the sort of thing that people need to do. People need to use the fact that we now have the internet and have this ability to connect to create new organizations and come together and take collective action like this. It is one thing if there truly is a free market and things that are irresponsible are allowed to die in the free market and bear the consequences of their actions and of their irresponsibility. And there would have been plenty of that back in 2008. Or you fundamentally change the rules of the game so that the fact that these institutions are essentially semi-public entities now, because of the way that their irresponsibility is checked by the public sector, you have to make it so the gains of that are not simply privatized. You can't have it both ways. You can't have the public propping something up, and because it's so important, because it is so vast, that everything else around it would collapse if that thing fell apart. So people say, well, it has to stay up. It has to stay up, or else we're all screwed. And it's like, okay, you can say that. And I'm not necessarily even saying that you should just let things die. I think that we're actually moving into a new sort of system to where maybe those institutions are kind of semi-public in what way? In one way or another. But the gains cannot be fully privatized. The logic of the free market does not apply when you get bailed out by the public sector. You have essentially said, we are now beholden to the public. And that means that our gains, like in the form of a universal basic income or whatever it is, as more and more money gets consolidated to those same people that created all the mess in the first place, that some of those gains need to be going back to the people who are ultimately, it's their debt and their children's debt and their grandchildren's debt that is propping up those institutions in this moment. So now that those same people are freaking out because for once a small group of people just got together and said, they're shorting the stock, let's buy a whole bunch of it. Let's make some money off this. Let's do the sorts of things that those people do. Except for we're gonna make them pay for it this time. The fact that they're now going to the regulators and saying this sort of thing needs to be stopped. This is where the regulators need to come on. People can't do this. It's like, yeah. So these people go towards the free market when it benefits them, and they want regulation when it doesn't benefit them. If you took out a crappy, a loan that you couldn't pay back in order to a subprime mortgage in order to buy a house, you're gonna pay for that because you bought a house that you couldn't afford. And hey, fine, you bought a house that you couldn't afford. But a massive organization, because they're so big, they're too big to fail, as it were, and now they're even more too big to fail. Those people that were making a bunch of money and profiting from, playing hot potato with those risky mortgages, and, collapsed an entire economy because of it, those people are continually rewarded. So I think this brings into focus so clearly how corrupt what's going on Wall Street is. And let me tell you right now, and this is the sort of call to action part of this. If the SEC tries to regulate this kind of activity, people, there will be hell to pay. No. I'm sorry. If those institutions have been propped up in this way, then you have no right to only create these sorts of rules when it starts hurting you. This is now a point of leverage for the people, so to speak. It's like, if you would like people to stop doing stuff like that, which people should keep doing for now, then you're also going to need to restructure other elements on Wall Street to better reflect what those institutions are in the moment, which is semi-public institutions, rather than companies that are increasingly able to play numbers games, essentially, and add no value and just use the system in order to consolidate wealth. You don't get to have it both ways. So I would say to people, I'm a guy who I let a lot of stuff. I'm like, I don't have time. Stay up on this. If they try to regulate this stuff, there needs to be hell to pay. Everybody needs to be calling their congressman. People just need to make a whole lot of fucking noise, because that's just too far. That's too far. And this sort of action, it's not going to come from a law. It's not going to come from some demagogic figure coming in and saying, hey, I'm going to save you guys. In the United States, especially when there was not such a massive federal government, for hundreds of years in this country, the thing that we did best was people had voluntary organizations. They would come together and they would do stuff together. They would build things. They would volunteer for things. They would form unions. They would do all sorts of things. We used to do that until like the middle of the 20th century. There's a quote from somebody I think European came, and he says, and the quote was something like, the Americans have an organization for everything. So because the state wasn't so powerful, people took it upon themselves to create all of these institutions. People took responsibility for their society, and they took that burden on voluntarily, and everybody benefited from it. So if we want the society to be better, there's not some big daddy who's going to come and change it for all of us. We have to take on a certain amount of responsibility. We have to be willing to accept the responsibilities that comes with the freedoms that we have. And that means making sure, in this case, that there aren't two sets of rules. And it means taking the action. And this is something that people from left to right, I think there was this huge kind of populist consensus right now that I'm convinced that the powers that be, whoever that is, they do not want the populist left and populist right, this sort of huge consensus that there is over a whole lot of different things. They don't want that group of people to be together, because together they could actually help things to change. They want to keep everybody, divided and hating each other, so that they can continue to just loot and pillage the country while pretending that they're these great people and looking down at you. So look, I'm going to keep my eye on this, and I would encourage all of you to as well. It's stuff like this, it's moments like this that open up opportunities. And if we take on the responsibility of citizenship and hold people accountable with that, using the power that we have, because you don't have much as an individual, you don't, but collectively people have a lot. So it's in our hands, and I'll continue to talk about this in the weeks to come. Let's see what happens here, but we should all keep an eye on it. Stay tuned.